Hi, this is Bonnie. Today we're going to be working on a Christmas card, making a wreath. I'm going to be using several different supplies, equipment type thing today. But first of all, what I typically do is this paper actually has been cut at a 6x6, and I'll probably cut it back as I'm using it. But what I first did is I prepared it like I usually do, and I use a Pumice stone because it was a white paper, and I wanted it to have a little bit more of a color to it. So I use a Pumice stone, and I use my blending brush. And what I did next is I added Fairy Hugs stencil called Flow because I just wanted a subtle background. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I did that on that piece. This paper's a little bit bigger than what my stencil is, and I don't really want the edge so much, and it's just a subtle look. So I'm putting a little bit of the Pumice stone on. I don't want it really dark, as you saw with my sample. And sometimes it gets dark depending on how much gets on this brush. All right, I'm going to flip that around and get the spots that I'm missing. I didn't want just to have the wreath in the center. I wanted to have a little bit of a texture look to it. So yeah, you can see I need to add more there. Here, let me pull that down. There we go. Now, you might want to adhere your stencil or whatever. I'm not doing that very well. I just like to hold it. Okay. I think that's good. I think I could have added a little bit more. I think I just need to turn that back around and line that up. And that's not too hard. And I'm going to get this spot right here. Yep, that's what we need. All right, so that's the beginning of what we need our base for. And then I have pulled out my gel press. I wish I didn't have that glare. I'll move it over just a little bit. I want to have, it's not that I usually can eye my circles in the way that I want to make it, but what I did for this one is I got out my die, my circle die, and it's about 4 inches. And what I did was, let me lift this up for you. I made a template out of just computer paper, and all I did was trace around the outside. And I knew I wanted it to be about a 4-inch size wreath, and because this is a 6-inch gel plate. And I just want to put that in there so that it looks fairly straight. I think it does. And then all I'm going to do is I am going to start with some Distress Oxide. And what I have is Rustic Wilderness, Bundled Sage, and Evergreen Bow. And I think what I'm going to do is I am going to start with the lightest color first, which will be Bundled Sage. And I'm going to be using my blending brushes. And I'm just going to follow that circle around, kind of dot it out, because I am going to spray water on it. So, and you really can't see this all that great, but I know I can see a little bit better here. You'll be able to see the darker color. And this is just for those that might have a problem figuring out making a circle. And this is going to be more of an organic circle. It's not going to be perfect, but it gives me a guide, and I thought maybe it would help you as a guide too. So I've got the Bundled Sage. The next one I'm going to do is Evergreen Bow. It's the medium color. I did 3 different color shades, a light, a medium, and a dark. And so this one is my medium. It's Evergreen. And I'm going to make sure my blending brush isn't too dirty. But this one should show up a little bit more. I think I can see it. I don't know if you can. but I'm keeping this center without anything at the moment. It is going to get something when I go and add water. Okay, I think you can see that a little bit better now. There you go. All right, so then the next one I'm going to be using is Rustic Wilderness. Whoops. Probably could just use the same brushes. Same brush for one as I'm getting darker. Okay, this one's got a little bit more different color too. So move that just a tad. Okay. Now I'm not really sure how I'm going to be adding more color, and that's okay because you can let this dry in between and add more ink. So that's really cool too. So the next thing I'm going to do, and I forgot to pull that out, is I'm going to be doing some gold. I'm going to be using some, I can't find the name. Oh, where is it? There it is. Okay. I'm going to be using some Ancient Copper from Cosmic Shimmer. And I use an ice cube tray. Whenever I use this, it works really well. And they dry up, and then I can come back and put water in them and use them again. So I'm just going to add some of that to the gold I had already used before. I'll show you about, I just added a little bit. And then I'm going to spray it with my water sprayer to get enough. Looks like a little bit of green got in there, but that's okay because I've got green going. And then I'm going to take my fan brush, stir that up a little bit. I love, love, love this gold when it shows up too. It's really pretty. So this kind of flicks all over the place. Okay, I think you can probably see how I've got that on there. You know what? I think I'm going to wait. I was going to add some red. I think I'll do the red last. So it kind of looks like berries. So now I'm just going to spray that up. It's really simple. It shouldn't take very long to make that. Here, let me show you the little dots and how they're all over. You can see them better that way. Okay. So I'm just going to spray it, and I want some bigger, so I'm holding it back a little bit, and I'm not squeezing it all the way down. It's just like a tiny, tiny squeeze. So I get the bigger drops. And I'm just doing that. Just like that. Can you see where that water is now? I think you can. Whoops, I almost lost it. Yep. All right, so I'm thinking, because I have two samples here, I am going to get this wet just a little bit so that I have a little bit more moisture going. All right, and I'm just going to put that over. And if it's not very dark, it's not a problem because I can keep adding once it dries. All right, let's see if it did anything. Yes, that gave me exactly what I'm looking for. And then I can actually stamp all over. I see this one spot right here that I would like to have a little bit more ink on. And I think I'm going to use the middle one, the Evergreen Bow, and line this back up just a little bit over to the side. All right, and I know it's at the top right here. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just want a little bit of ink. All right. Make sure I get that right. Oop, I'm gonna add a little bit of water. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I get that in the right place. I'm kind of holding my finger right there, knowing where it's at. Let's see. Yep, filled in that spot. Perfect. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can a little bit. The shimmer is really, really pretty. The Cosmic Shimmer. It's really pretty on here. In fact, I think I want a little bit more. I mean, it's throughout if you can kind of see it. But I think I want a little bit more. So what I'm going to do with that, because it'll still go on top of the ink right now, and I think I might still add, I don't know if I'm going to add the red, but we'll see. I might do that for the other one that I made, so we can have a variety. But I want some bigger gold right now. And I'm not going to water that down at all because it's got water in it now. All right. I always kind of like change up things as things work out. And it's like, okay, I want a little bit more gold now. So that's what I put on here. And I'm just going to hold this right over it. I think there's more down here. Here we go. And that'll just give me a little bit more of the gold. Yeah, I got a little bit more. Not a lot, but a little bit. That's all I wanted. All right, so that's one down. Let's go ahead and make a second one, seeing as I've made it. And this time we are going to add some of the red powder. But first, let's get the wreath made again. I'm going to make this one pretty much the same way. You can't even hardly really tell that bundle of sage is in there, but if you didn't have it, you would have been able to tell. So let's go. I think this one, I think I messed up my brushes too, so that's all right. We're going to have different colors. And I got to line this up. It moved. There we go. All right. Again, I'm just going around about where that circle is. And like I said, I don't care that it's more organic. I don't want it to be perfect. I would have used a die if I wanted something to be more perfect. All right. Same process again, except for it's going to come out a little bit different because I'm going to add a lot more water and I'm going to be adding some red pigment. This is still a little bit damp from what I already did, so it's kind of smearing this different. Okay. Now I'm going to use the darkest color, which is Rustic Wilderness. And I'm going to use the same brush because it's not going to matter. Okay. All right. So now, again, I'm still going to put the gold on, like I said. I really would like it a little bit thicker, but I should probably hold it back, but this will work. Okay. Now I need to find my red. And this one is a Lindy's. This one's a Lindy's. Let's see what this is. This is Autumn Maple Crimson. So this one's going to be a little bit darker. I think it's the same one I have in here, so we're going to go ahead and put it together. All right. Again, I already have some in here, but I'm going to add a little bit more. The red is definitely going to show up. Using my same brush, even though it has gold on it. And I'm going to put some on. There's some big blobs. That's what I wanted. Yay. This in itself is really kind of fun. If I wasn't filming it, I would take my time a little bit more to be a little bit more wherever I wanted. But this is fun. All right. So I set that out of the way. I'm going to use my water sprayer. Each one I do is different because I do something different every time. This one's going to have a little bit more water. Okay, again, this is my second one that I had made. I'll try to line that up a little bit better and see what we get. I love it. I always get it all over my hands. Okay. Let's see. Oh, we have a lot of color. Look at that. That is really pretty. It's going to be really pretty once I stamp on top of it. So my next step now is I have to go ahead and let these dry so that I'll be able to stamp on them. So I think I'm going to have the two different versions, which I think is kind of cool. And I'll pull out the stamps. Okay, so now that we have our base completed, we are going to work on the wreath part. And in order to do this, unless you have a stamp that's already made into a wreath, which would be a pretty big wreath, you are going to be using individual stamps to create this. You can use any foliage to create a wreath. The little pieces work better, but I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the ones that I'm using today, and that is I am using Fairy Hugs Wreath Builder. You have several different foliage, and they're all single pieces, and they work really great to make the wreath. I'm also going to be using the Pinecone stamp, and I'm going to be using the smallest one. All three of these would make really pretty swags or whatever you want to do. Mixed with this one too would be great. So what I did is, if you remember, not yesterday, but if you remember earlier when we made the a background, I made a circle. And that circle, wait here, let's see if I can show you better without the glare. That same circle I taped behind my lid, so I would have a guide. Usually I don't use a guide, I just kind of stamp it and eye it, but I thought to help anybody that doesn't do that, this might help somebody knowing how to make a circle on their background. Now, it's true you could put a pencil, but then you have to be concerned about erasing the pencil. So anyway, this worked, I think, and it might help you in order to make your own circle wreath. So the next step would be you need to start by putting one stamp down where you know that you want it to be. And that is what I did with this piece right here. I'm going to go ahead and do it again. So basically, I'm going to come over here. You can also use your acetate, but it doesn't allow you to move it. So I know that I'm going to start my wreath about right there. Let me get a little bit closer. I don't want to get too close because they're going to be out of the picture for the rest of it. So anyway, I'm going to start right there. And then what I do is I close this. You can't see anything because the paper is on it. But when I bring it back, I can see where it's at on my circle and if it's in the right position. Now what's nice about these stamps is I can position them slightly. There's not a lot of give to them, but there is. So if you notice that this was sticking off to the side, I just pulled that over on top of that line. And I can do the same to the bottom, or I could even move this so it goes out a little bit more. So there's a lot of manipulation you can do when you're doing this. And so that made a little bit more of a curve for my for that stamp. Now, once you have that positioned, one other thing I need to tell you really quick before I forget, make sure that the backs of your stamps are not dusty, if you know what I mean, that they'll stick well so you can manipulate them. They work better when they're clean on the back. So the next thing I did was I'm just stamping the, I want to say the fur part in black. You can stamp them in any color you want, but because I did a variation of colors, I did green and I did red and I did the black and brown. So I decided I'm going with the black so they don't all mix together. So just to show you the first thing how I did that. And again, like I said, you can't see right now what you're doing. But because they're not a really solid stamp, you don't really need to see them. So that's my first placement. So this is the next thing I learned. You need to wipe the stamp off, or when you go to place it back down, it will leave a shadow. Not that it's going to matter a whole lot if it's just a tiny shadow, but it might possibly make a difference when you go to stamp it, if it doesn't go over. Anyway, so I'm using the next one. There's two different ferns in that, and I'm going to use this one next. And I'm kind of, like I said, just overlapping it, sort of positioning where I think I would like it to be. And then I come back over, pick that up, and now I'm going to shape it more into the direction that I want it to go. And you can do that, like I said, with these types of stamps. They allow you to do that. So, and it just moved on me. Again, like I said, if it doesn't, then you just adjust it to the way it's going to be working, the best way. It doesn't have to be perfect, because these are not, wreaths are not perfect. And this is sort of like flower arranging, but with stamps. I think I've said that in my other videos before. So that's how that would work. And again, make sure every time you either dab that off or you wipe it off with a paper towel so you don't have that excess, so you don't get a second generation. So you keep going all the way around using the fern. That's what I basically started doing. But I also added some berries in. And I think I'm going to go ahead and add berries at this point because I can see how this is joining together. So at this point, I'm just going to add some berries. So again, I'm going to place that in there. Bring this over. Take a look at how it's positioned on there. And it's going to be fine. It's going to be touching part of the circle there. I'm going to be using Glamourous for my red on here. And that's how that would work. And so then again, I got to tap that off so it doesn't have any more ink on it, much of any ink on it. And I'm going to go back to this one and add that, I think. Hold on a second. Yep, I'm going to flip it around, and you can go back and forth with these, which is really great too. They don't have to go in one direction. Let's see if this works. Okay, I'm going to pull this down just a little bit, and like I said, that's all you're going to do all the way around is just manipulate your fern and your berries and how you want them to be placed. And that's how that would go. So I'm going to continue to do this, and then I'll come back in and show you when I do the pine cones and the holly leaves. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and stop this for a second, and then I'm going to speed it up. Okay, so you watched me quickly I spatted up a little bit so you could see what that looked like. And you noticed in a couple spots where it didn't come together, and so I used the berries to help me fill that in. I also wanted to do the berries so they were an odd number, so I ended up adding another one over here. It's not going to matter because of how I add the pine cones, and like I said, each time I do it, as you can see, it's going to be different. So each time you do this, it's going to be a unique card for someone. Or it could even be framed as far as that goes. So the next step would be to use, I used the pine cones next because it was a larger stamp. And I also try to keep in mind where the holly leaf could go close to the berries. So let's go ahead and do the pine cone next. And I'm just gonna, go ahead and make it close to the berries anyway. And I am going to be using Pinecone, VersaClair Pinecone for this one. So it's not going to matter a whole lot about the placement on the circle, although I can always double check over here to make sure that it's close. But for the most part, I'm going to be able to see how that's going to play out. It also is going to help me, like in this case, it's not really sticking out very far for a perfect circle, but the pine cone will help balance that up a little bit. And then I'm going to probably be adding the holly leaves too, but I'm going to do the pine cone first all the way around. And I'm not going to speed this up because there's not very many, but I think it'll help you see. I also think, okay, do I want to have some go in, some go out, so keep that in mind too, and how that will, look when you place it on there, and how that's going to all play out in terms of the circle. I think I'm going to end up with a holly leaf the other way, so we'll be fine with this pine cone going down. So I got to keep that in mind too. I mean, there's always things you can add to it to balance it out other than just what I'm using, because the wreath builder has several other things that are in it that work really well. I keep forgetting to wipe this off. All right, this is going to be in my way. So let's see. I think I like it going up. Let's see. Actually, I think I'm going to put it right there. It's a little bit different, but not too high up. Well, you know what? I'm going to skip on that one and go down here first. Yeah. Make sure. Oh, the pine cone does go two different ways. The biggest part is the part that should be attached, and then you have the little point at the bottom. I think that's going to work. I kind of want to cover up this a little bit, so I think I'm going to go there. So there's always, like I said, it's different. It's like flower arranging. It's never the same every time you do it. I mean, there's things that are similar. Okay. And again, I still like to go with the odd number. So I got to keep that in mind also. Alrighty, and one more. And you see, that really did help me make a decision as to where I wanted to put that last one up there. All right. Now we're going to go with a holly leaf. And it's just one leaf. And I'm going to be adding that green into places like that. It's just going to be random again, but how it looks on your wreath. And this really helps fill in the wreath too, even though we have the background with the green, it just, I don't know, it just makes it all work out. All right, I wanted this part over here to stand out a little bit more, so I'm going to add that there. Makes a difference if I put the stamp on the right way. All right. It can be a little fussy depending on what you want to do. You can make it simpler, more simple, if you wanted to. And then I'm still allowing for either a sentiment or a fairy or an animal for the center. I haven't decided yet. I have to get out the acetate pictures, and that allows me to think about what I'd like to do. I think I'm going to add this just because I want to add that little bit more to that side. Okay. Take your time when you do yours. It makes it more fun if you do. And actually, there's no right or wrong way for that leaf either. I don't think there is. I think I'm adding a little bit more green to this one than I did my first one. Okay. I'm not doing as much talking because I'm thinking, and it's just a matter of, like I said, thinking about how the placement will make it look circular and how that all works out. So I think that will be our last one. And we will have our wreath completed. Okay, so the next step is to see if I want to place anything in the center. I think I am going to be adding some more, let me show you, I'm not sure yet, but I am planning on adding, oh, if I could find it, I have another stamp, here it is. This one's called Pinecone Branches, and I'm considering adding gold to this. So I have to wait for these to dry, because if I heat emboss this with gold, everything will turn gold. So I am going to probably wait till this dries off and give this a try with a gold. And then I'm also going to see what image or stamp or sentiment would work inside of here. I'll be right back. Okay, for this last step, I decided I'm going to be using the VersaMark stamp or ink, and I am also going to be using the Pinecone Branches. I told you I wanted to add a little bit of gold. This is how I'm going to be adding that teeny tiny bit of gold, and I probably will use my glitter gold gel pen to add some dots throughout also, just to give it a little bit of sparkle. So I've added those two. I'm going to add one more. So I'm just going to add 3, because like I said, I am going to also add, I'm going to ink that up one more time, because I'm also going to use my gel pen. All right. So I'm going to quickly just put this one over here so that it kind of balances it out. I think right there. Okay. I don't want to wait too long. I don't think that this one ink lasts as long as my VersaMark Clear, VersaFine Clear rather. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put the gold embossing powder on that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so for the last thing I'm going to do for this card is I am going to add this sentiment to the middle. Now, like I said, there's a lot of options. There's a big space here. You can put many different scenes. In fact, the other 2 that I've already made, it's probably going to be different from this, but this is just to give you an idea of what you can do rather quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp this in Nocturn, VersaFine Clear Nocturn, and depending on how it looks, I am going to either leave it as stamped or I'm going to add clear embossing powder, but let's see how that works. I think this works really well for the center, but like I said, there's so many different things you can use with from Fairy Stamper Hugs, and I am going to finish those other 2 cards, and I will show you a picture of them at the beginning, and I will also have some more information on my blog. All right, let's see how this looks. I'm going to stamp that one more time. I really like it. And if you actually, I am also going, like I said, I am going to show you the gel pen, the glitter gel pen too. All right, it's exactly what I want. It looks really good. So if you have issues like I do on occasion, I need to really use non-sticky tape, and I don't have any. And I'll have to get some, but it takes away, and so all I do is I go back afterwards and I will add more ink, and I am also going to scuff up the edges of these anyway, so it's not that big of a deal, but that is what I'll do. Or the other thing you can do is add a clear embossing powder, or actually, yeah, clear embossing powder, and then not embossing powder, you can use your VersaFine mark along the edges like I've done in other videos, and then use your gold embossing powder to highlight around the edges. That also will cover up if you have any blemishes along the edge. So that is what my card, this one, is going to end up looking like. Now, I'm going to get my gold. This is the gold sparkly pen I have. It's from Pentel, and I got this on Amazon. So what I'm going to do, pull this a little bit closer. What I'm going to do, you can see my gold and how that turned out. I am just going to go throughout and dot and add a little bit more gold. And this is really pretty, actually. I don't know how well. Let me see. Yeah, you can see it. It's really pretty, and it's just subtle, and it works well. So like I said, I'm just going to go through with that throughout the stamp and just add this little bit of sparkle. And it just, I don't know, it just, that little bit adds a little bit more interest, I guess. Makes it kind of fun. And I think the other thing I'm going to do is this star right here. I'm going to go also add a little bit of this to it because it's very easy to do. If I hold my hand steady, it's easy to do. And I'm keeping a little bit of the black in the back to highlight that. And I'm also going to come down here to the base of the tree, and I'm going to keep that highlight there. And I'm just going to color that in with this glitter pen. And I'm going to get a little closer. There we go. So you can see how that looks on there and up at this, on the star. And that will be my finished card topper. I just need to put that now on a card base. And I don't think you need to probably watch me do that, but again, like I said at the beginning, I will have a picture of the finished card and what that looks like. So I just would like to thank you for stopping by. I'll have all of the, in the description, I'll have all of everything that I used and the links. And I also would like to invite you to Fairy Stamper Hugs on Facebook, where you can share your creations. And if you decide to make something like this, I'd love to see what you made. So again, thanks for stopping by.